Okay, I am calling to order, just a little bit late here, the January 13th meeting of the Open Space and Ecology Committee. Can we start with an adoption of the agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Does anybody have any quick oral communications? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and jump in to our presentation by Fred Smith. Sorry.
I think I do have an oral communication.
Oh, sure.
We should all be looking for more dead Monterey pines. There are lots of them. I walked Valley Drive yesterday between Bayshore and Hill and found another probably 10 trees that have died. They're really dying fast.
Mm-hmm. And these aren't on the inventory that?
No.
Okay.
No, Natalie sent me the inventory and I checked.
Double checked, okay.
Natalie, maybe you could just send it to everybody.
I have a paper copy.
Talking about dead trees.
Sure.
We wanted to talk about those just a little bit during staff updates, because we did meet with an arborist about kind of trying to get a feel of how far along we should get trees removed and whether any of them could be trimmed and saved. So can we want to revisit that during staff updates?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, Fred, would you like to jump on in?
All right. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Well, hello. My name, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Fred Smith, and I used to be the staff support for the Open Space and Ecology Committee, and I retired from the city in the fall of 2010. So it's good to be back, but it feels a little bit strange after over 4 years away. It's not like riding a bicycle. You kind of like don't always know. Remember, just can't hop back on and just feel your balance here. So, but anyway, last fall I was asked by then Mayor Miller and the city manager to come and talk to the Open Space Ecology Committee about the open space plan and its background, how it came to be, how it was put together, and what it does and does not do. So I'll start with the background. The committee, or the open space plan, started when, in 1998, then Mayor Conway established an ad hoc committee to look at the issue and make a recommendation to the city council regarding the establishment of a committee or commission to advise the city council on environmental and open space issues. The establishment of such a body was a policy of is, I guess, a policy of the 1994 general plan. The members of the ad hoc committee were Mayor Conway and former mayors Ray Miller, Janine Hodge, and Clara Johnson. And I hope I haven't forgotten anybody, leaving anybody out, but that's the best I could do from my memory. So I was tasked as a staff member at the time to assist the ad hoc committee in coming up with some recommendations and exploring some possible options. Initially, it came out that a major concern of the group was preserving open space in the Brisbane Acres, at the time most of which was still in private ownership, and it was perceived to be at risk for development, residential development. So the committee deliberated on this and looked at some various options for doing that, and concluded that a committee or commission was needed. It was determined that the body should be a committee rather than a commission because it would be strictly advisory to the council and not have any kind of authority like the planning commission does for quasi-judicial decisions. And that its first priority should be to develop an open space plan to prioritize and develop strategies for the city's preservation efforts, particularly in the Brisbane Acres. The model for an open space plan was decided to be used was that open space plan from the city of Pacifica. They had recently completed an open space plan, and the result was, we liked the result. They had used a committee with representatives from the various city bodies, staff, and members of the public to do the research, the analysis, the evaluation, and put all that together into a plan document. In addition, the committee, the ad hoc committee, deemed that the Open Space Ecology Committee should be charged with studying and making recommendations on issues concerning ecology and the environment in general, that it shouldn't just focus on open space, but it should be an open space and ecology committee. And they picked that name for the committee. In 1999, early 1999, the ad hoc committee made a recommendation to the City Council to establish the Open Space Ecology Committee for an initial 2-year period, with its first charge and priority being the development of an open space plan, and as time and resources allowed, they could look at other environmental matters, but their charge was to focus, as much as possible on developing the open space plan as quickly as possible. The members of the initial Open Space and Ecology Committee were one City Council member, one Planning Commissioner, and one PB&R Commissioner, each appointed by those respective bodies, and 4 members of the public appointed by the City Council, and 1 staff member who would be ex officio non-voting member, and that was myself, to the initial Open Space Ecology Committee. And the composition of the committee, who was appointed from where changed a number of times over the years, as you know, and now is a 5-member body appointed by the City Council, similar to the Planning Commission and PB&R. But at one point there were 2 council members. At one point the Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Commission decided they didn't really want to send a member and be a liaison because they felt there was just not enough overlap in their areas. And so anyway, the committee has evolved over the years to the form that it now is, that you are now serving on. And after 2 years, the City Council would determine if the Open Space Ecology Committee should be made into a permanent body, or should it sunset after its initial charge had been fulfilled. So in May of 1999, the Open Space Ecology Committee held its first meeting and established a work program for the Open Space Plan, again modeled on the methods that Pacifica used, which would be to study each vacant parcel within the city, evaluate and analyze those parcels, prepare reports on them, and then use those reports to develop a planning document. An intern was to be hired to do the field studies, or write the reports and do research, and those reports were submitted to the Open Space Ecology Committee, which were then reviewed and vetted, and then used as the basis for the Open Space Plan. So after a little over 2 years of work, the committee didn't quite meet its deadline, but all that background information research was completed. The city hired a consultant, Randy Anderson, was hired to organize and write the plan. The intern that we hired was initially going to do the work, but right about that time he left for a job as a parks planner for East Bay Regional Parks District, so he was no longer available, so we determined to hire the consultant, and did a pretty good job, I thought. The Open Space Plan was presented to the City Council in August of 2001 and was approved by the City Council, as you know. So I'd like to just kind of point out a few highlights of the Open Space Plan. And the first slide, or the first one I'll show, is the areas that were studied. So the analysis was broken into 5 separate study areas, one being the Brisbane Acres, Sierra Point, the Baylands and Lagoon, the Beatty sub-area, and Northwest Bayshore. So Beatty sub-area is the area kind of near the Ecology headquarters, and Northwest Bayshore is, it's actually here, I'm sorry, is the Levinson property, the Peking Handicraft property in that area between Bayshore and Guadalupe.
So Ice House Hill went as part of the Baylands then?
I beg your pardon?
Ice House Hill went as part of the Baylands
Yes,
for the
Ice House
study?
Hill was part of the Baylands. So I'm not going to go into the details of the analysis of each of these sub-areas. You guys have copies of the book and that's covered in quite a bit of detail in each of the respective sections that deals with each sub-area, but I'll just kind of touch on some of the highlights.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you did not include the Northeast Ridge in the open space plan?
Right. The Northwest Ridge was deliberately not included because the specific plan had already been adopted, and that set forth what areas were going to be open space, what areas were going to be developed, and so that had already kind of been finalized through that process.
Okay.
So on page 18 here, it talks about the evaluation criteria that were used to determine which parcels in the Brisbane Acres were to be prioritized for preservation as open space. So the key criteria were it adjoins developed parcels on. Wait a second here.
All right.
If it adjoins developed parcels on more than one side, then that was kind of a negative criteria, that would deem it probably not as desirable. In other words, if it was kind of surrounded at least on two sides, it would probably be not as important as one that had no development next to it or was bordered on only one side by developed parcels. If it were contiguous to San Bruno Mountain Park, if it contained substantial intact native vegetation, if the parcel contained significant watercourses or wetlands, or if it contained endangered butterfly habitat or potential trail corridors. So each parcel in the Brisbane Acres was evaluated, each undeveloped parcel in the Brisbane Acres was evaluated according to those criteria. So on pages 21, 22, and 23, there's maps that show, which show some of those features. And on page 31, these charts here, all of those features as they pertain to each of the parcels were put into an Excel spreadsheet database. And so we were able to sort according to these criteria and came up with a list of parcels, a composite, if you will, that are these shaded parcels here on page 32.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything within this shaded area was considered the priority preservation area for the Brisbane Acres. And so those are the areas that we focused on in our acquisition efforts since then. And that priority preservation area is shown here in yellow on this map of the city-owned parcels. So page 38 is a map showing the Northwest Bayshore sub-area. The PG&E Marsh has been dedicated for permanent open space, so that shows us open space there. And the areas that potentially contained butterfly habitat are shown kind of in a gray, darker gray, dotted, and then the other areas that were deemed to be desirable for open space are the upperlands that up from Bayshore approaching Guadalupe Canyon. So basically the steeper, higher elevation lands were considered to be more desirable for open space, and the more level lands along Bayshore Boulevard would be considered a lower priority for preservation of this sub-area.
Question?
Mm-hmm.
These parts of the Levinson property that were deemed to be potential endangered butterfly habitat, what was that based on exactly?
It was based on observations as whether it contained grassland, field studies they may have seen some house plants or something. The intern probably observed some house plants.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think any population counts or any detailed scientific studies were done. It was just really, it's called potentially endangered species habitat. Be suitable, or if it is not existing habitat, perhaps could be restored or.
Be restored, okay. Thank you.
But really, it wasn't characterized much different than the lower areas other than the slope?
I think the slope and the vegetation patterns, the lower areas are much more heavily impacted by dense, invasive species, non-native vegetation, brush, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Just a moment. Natalie, is this gray rectangle that's showing up on everybody's screen, is that something that can be cleaned up? I don't even know what it's from.
What gray rectangle?
I got it there, and you've got it there.
I don't have it.
It's doing.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it.
Well, don't worry about it. Okay.
I don't think it's, see right here, there's a little gray rectangle.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, well, just ignore that.
Okay.
I thought it might be interviewing with some people's views to something, but,
Guys, look back at the big screen.
okay.
Is it like the monitor's acting?
Yeah, you see that gray sheen. What page are you on now, Fred?
Please continue, Fred. Sorry
Okay,
about
I'm on
that.
page 49, map showing the Baylands and the Brisbane Lagoon sub-area. So as you can see, it has Ice House Hill as open space, the Brisbane Lagoon and called the Delta, which is, the area of the lagoon where the
With the
drainage
siltation
flows- yeah,
problem?
where the siltation. And the marsh at the end over near Sierra Point, and the area between Lagoon Way and the lagoon as open space. So then it was kind of an interesting, since the general plan discussed open space and open areas, and there was quite a bit of discussion, and I'm not real sharp on the nuances of it after these years, but open areas don't necessarily mean completely vacant. They can be landscaped areas in campus-style development, so it's more like an open feeling to the land, I think, was because the general plan did not just say maximum open space. There's a certain percentage of the land that was to be open areas. You guys have probably all dealt with that language, those general plan policies. I think my feeling was probably left intentionally vague to give the city flexibility in working out the plan with the landowner, but I wasn't involved in drafting of that document, so I don't know for sure. But anyway, the area south of the water channel that divides the Baylands is kind of a lighter tan color, and that's proposed or recommended to maximize open areas, as opposed to recommended to be saved as open space. So, but I think the feeling was that the closer you got to central Brisbane, the more open and natural feeling there should be in the land, and that should be something to be taken into account in the planning for the Baylands. So anyway, that's the recommendation from the committee in this plan.
So at that time, the only area that was really proposed as open space was the lagoon and Ice House Hill.
And the
Oh,
area
and the corridor for the drainage.
and the area between Lagoon Way and the lagoon itself,
Oh, right.
between the
okay.
roadway and the water. And the area along what's called the river park.
Yeah,
Or did you mention that? I'm sorry.
yeah, I did.
Okay. And then on Sierra Point, this little wetlands and shell beach area, right on the northeastern corner of Sierra Point where it meets the Bayshore Freeway.
Oh, is this on the same map?
Yeah, it's on the same map, I'm sorry. was recommended to maintain as open space and the.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On this map, when you have the proposed regional Bay Trail route marked and then proposed local connecting trails, how did you see the connector going through that area between Sierra Point and the west side of the lagoon?
Good question. I've been out there. It's very strange.
I mean, did you have any kind of a vision, or was that just a pie in the sky hope? Because we just got done talking about that in our PCA discussion.
So, are you talking about this area where it goes under the freeway, or what?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh. How did you cross the tracks for the local trail that runs along or did you cross the tracks? See where the little dots are that go along the western shore?
Yeah,
of
that
the lagoon?
follows the road and then along the shore, but you're right, there's some idea for a trail along the east side of the tracks that would, I really don't, I have to say, I really don't remember that particular detail. It may be discussed in the text of the document, but I really don't know. It may be just a conceptual idea that it would be good to have, I think they did want us to have a trail all the way around the perimeter of the lagoon that would hook up with that Bay Trail connection. I can't really remember if that, the details of how that would actually be worked out are specified.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
So like I said, there's a lot of description of each sub-area and a lot of discussion of some of the issues in terms of why certain areas were, how the analysis went to the recommendation, such as for the Levinson parcels, to why certain parts of it were deemed to be more important for open space. So I don't want to spend all night going through that in great detail. It's all right here in the report. So
Okay.
and I know you have that. So. Then on page 57, there's a listing of all the applicable general plan policies that were evaluated and looked at in the development of the open space plan. And then on page 80, this I think is a very important part of the open space plan. It's a section on methods for preserving and acquiring open space. So it goes into regulatory methods such as zoning, special kind of zoning districts like cluster zoning, density bonuses, floating zones, hillside development ordinances, overlay district zone, performance standard zoning, PD zoning, all of which allow a certain amount of flexibility in laying out building footprints to avoid areas with more sensitive resources and to try to steer development into areas that are more appropriate. Subdivision controls, if when lots are split, you have the ability to determine, how access is going to be provided and how the lot lines will be drawn. An important one here is this number 3 on page 82, the transfer of development rights and credits. That's also known as the density transfer provision. So the way that works is each of these parcels is zoned for one residential unit per 20,000 square feet of lot area. 20,000 square feet is approximately a 1/2 acre. So the Brisbane acres are each roughly 40,000 to 40-some thousand square feet each. Hence the name Brisbane acres, because they're each approximately an acre. And so the underlying, sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think the camera scooched itself, because, anyway, but thanks. So each of these has an underlying sort of entitlement or density in the zoning of 2 units per acre. What the density transfer does is if someone wanted to build more than 2 units on one of these other parcels that is outside the priority preservation area, they could transfer the density rights from one of these parcels that are more worthy of preservation onto the recipient parcel. So say someone owned this lot and this lot. They could build 4 units here if they were to dedicate this unit as open space.
Are you aware of any property owners that are in that situation?
I'm not at the current time, but we did acquire one parcel through that process. And that would have been lot 49 right here.
Uh-huh.
And that was donated by the developer, where is it? The San Diego Court project off of Humboldt. So that's how we acquired lot 49, was through a density transfer. That parcel was donated. At the time the ordinance was adopted, I think there was a great deal of discussion as to whether there should be an incentive to transfer the development rights. In other words, to give a density bonus if you dedicate open space. But that was rejected, and the density transfer goes on just a one-to-one basis. And it can't go the other way. You can't transfer density into the priority preservation area. It only goes from the priority preservation area out to, say, a lot that's on San Bruno Avenue or.
Why was the density bonus idea turned down? Do you know?
It was a policy decision of the city council. I think the arguments were that it would encourage a greater overall number of units than what would have been allowed anyway. And so this at least is sort of density neutral, or number of units neutral in terms of the overall development that could possibly occur within the sub area.
So in the example that you cited, Lot 49 could have had 2 houses on it?
Right.
Okay. So both of those houses were transferred, both of those were transferred then to San Diego Court?
In that development, yeah, 2 additional houses were allowed there. Part of that property, part of that development was on a parcel that was part of the Brisbane Acres, so
Okay.
they were out.
Which already had 2 allowed, I guess, or, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It might
Seems
even
like a
only,
whole
it might have only
enclave.
been a half. Well, it's an interesting because not all of that development was in the acres, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it was a half an acre and then some lots on Humboldt, and so the whole thing was kind of combined. But in order to increase the density of the Brisbane Acres part of it, the developer had to buy a lot up in the Brisbane Acres and dedicate it as open space. So, just in summary, what the open space plan does do is it serves to identify the resources and attributes of open lands in Brisbane, and it prioritizes open lands according to their value so that the city can effectively maximize its limited resources in its preservation efforts. And it helps identify and develop preservation strategies, including lower cost methods other than purchase, such as the density transfer method. Also, I guess I neglected to mention there's some other acquisition methods such as bargain sales. City has made some bargain purchases where people have sold property below market value in the Brisbane Acres, and been able to take a tax deduction for the difference between market value and the sale price to the city.
Mr. Newman, is that method also would they be able to donate an entire
Sure.
property
Yeah.
without it actually being a sale, but get the tax benefit for the entire property?
Right. Yeah, it would be, since the city is a nonprofit organization, it would be like you donated it to a charity. So if the property was worth $80,000 and someone just wanted to give it to the city, then they could probably, if they had a tax liability, it would depend on their tax situation, but potentially they could receive, some tax benefits from doing that, if that's something that would help them.
Okay. And when they do those tax benefits, are they able to extend that over a period of time?
I don't know.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
I thought you might know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's something that the person's, accountant and everything would have to figure out how it would benefit them. But,
Okay.
And the open space plan has helped the city get grants from state and federal agencies. Having an open space plan is a key element in applying for grants, showing that you have a program, you've got a set of goals, you've got a delineated area that you're targeting for preservation. And so having the open space plan has helped the city get over $1 million over the past 15 years or so to acquire many of these parcels through grants from the state and federal governments. What the open space plan does not do, it is not a regulatory document, and that's something that the city attorney at the time wanted to stress, wanted to be stressed explicitly in the document itself, that the open space plan is not a regulatory document, and it does not limit any development rights or zone any property as open space. It is used solely to help the city council focus and target its open space preservation efforts. So, owning a parcel in the priority preservation zone or any area that's designated as a priority for open space does not in any way limit what the property owner can do other than what's already in the zoning ordinance or the subdivision ordinance.
Actually, with the density transfer operation in play, it actually increases the value of those lots, those acres. With the density transfer option in play, an unbuildable lot or a very hard to build lot now has value
Nice.
to be able to sell, and it increases the market value of the properties.
I see what you're saying. So it creates a market for these properties that may not be ready for development yet, or may be difficult or next impossible to build. So, yeah. So I think that's probably true. I think that aspect is, to some extent, was considered to be outweighed by the fact that it provides a means by which the city can secure ownership and ensure that property remains open space in perpetuity.
Yeah, I think
Because-
that's one of the reasons why the density transfer remained as a 1-to-1
Yeah,
ratio.
I think so. Yeah.
I think
Because-
you're right. If it
I
had
was
been a higher
there.
ratio, it would have been too valuable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you know, property that's considered unbuildable today may not be so in the future, depending on how valuable a home site becomes in Brisbane, or how much someone wants to invest in having a house on a unique site. So,
Or how deep the water gets.
right.
High ground.
Beachfront property in the Brisbane Acres could be quite valuable someday.
But this is amazing. It really is an amazing document, Fred, and it really, it has helped the city a lot to define their open space sort of desires and acquisition plans. And we were using it tonight because we were working towards getting priority conservation area status for all of the areas in the open space plan and then some, because it doesn't conflict with having a PDA status, and it opens the door to a lot of grants and a lot of opportunities for connectivity. And so having this as a guiding document for the work that we're doing for the PCA grant makes it a lot easier for us to designate the whole town. No.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So just the last thing I wanted to add was that this volume 2 of the open space plan, which you probably haven't laid eyes on, it's been kind of sitting upstairs in the planning library up on the second floor of City Hall, but this contains all of the background reports that were prepared on each of the parcels and some of the bibliography materials. So these are the background reports and the data that was generated in order to put that plan together. So you can get a sense from looking at this
Cool.
how much work actually went into.
Yeah. Is there, has that been digitized?
I do not believe so.
It really should be, especially since it's probably the only copy, or there are multiple
It's
copies?
the only copy I could find here in City Hall, so I think there were.
So Natalie, is that where you got the, those biological reports you sent us on Levinson over the summer?
No, those are in the planning files.
Okay. Wonder wonder if there's some new stuff in there.
Yeah. Do we have any kind of method for digitizing these kinds of documents that have high historical value?
We pay a service to do that. That's a really big document, so I don't know, we'll have to discuss. That's like in our budget to do that.
I think it'd be very worthwhile to make sure that we have that digitized and accessible, especially if that's the last known copy of it, because there's a lot of research that went into this, and that could help frame, future revisions to the plan.
It's cheaper to preserve the current research than have to do it all over.
Yeah, and so much of our research and documents have been lost over the years that it would be a shame to lose that.
Yeah,
It has to be scanned, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think using a service lets you scan all of it and keep it as one file, whereas our copy machine might not have that capability. But we can look into the cost and get back to you guys.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
fortunately, it's a three-ring binder, so you wouldn't have to cut, a volume apart and then put it back together. You could just, run it through a scanner. How you'd do that, I don't know.
Yeah. Amazing. Do you see any areas that, like if you had to work some of this now, what kind of changes would you make? What areas do you feel are vulnerable that were not included or that you would want included? Do you feel the priority set still hold up over time, or would you change anything? Just off the top of your head, like you never really get a chance to do a do-over, but if you could or would, what would you change or enhance?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think the committee at the time did a top-notch job.
So, any other questions from any other questions from any other committee members?
Still thinking.
Okay. How about you, Kima?
Nope, nothing from me, thanks.
So not so much a do-over, but we've been tasked with updating this plan. Is there anything that what do you think might deserve updating?
And I'm not sure that we're going to revise this plan. We don't have.
How we were
budget
supposed to update
I
it?
think we want to somehow amend what properties have been bought, but we
Okay.
have that new map from Fred. I don't know that that's a monumental task to revisit and do what they did.
Yeah, I don't think we're supposed to rewrite it. I just thought we were supposed to do a little update on it. Am I mistaken?
I think really we were supposed to update what properties have been purchased. Also, I had a discussion with Paul Buscal about how protected these properties are. And I know that the city of Brisbane owns them, and some of them I know, like there was one that's marked in blue, I guess, was a potential site for an additional water tank as opposed to permanent open space. He was mentioning that earlier. I think on that chart, will it actually show up?
Yeah, this chart here shows,
You need to move it a little bit. So.
oh, sorry. These parcels in blue are water tank sites. Not all of them have water tanks. This is the Glen Park tank.
Right.
This is the large new tank on Margaret Tank.
Uh-huh.
These are just historic water tank sites that I can't see ever being developed. These used to have small water tanks, I think, from when the city was
yeah.
first founded.
They still have kind of ruins at them. I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
they
no
have They have the foundations of them.
But,
Yeah.
other than that, I can't see any potential use for them. And these two actually, do have modern water tanks on them. But back to your question about how protected are these? The parcels that were acquired through state and federal grants are deed restricted, and the city cannot sell the properties or change the land use in any way without getting the permission of the granting agency. So those are protected. Not all these parcels were bought through grant funds, and so the ones that the city bought outright with its own funds, those are protected basically, I mean, the city has the discretion to do whatever it chooses with those properties. If it wants to sell those at some point, it can.
So what would you recommend to permanently protect them?
Well, other than transferring them to another agency, I mean, I can't really see, I don't think the council can bind a future council as to how city property gets used. So, I mean, I think the best way to do it, in my opinion, would be just to make a strong policy statement, adopt a resolution. You know, it's not necessarily legally binding, but it's a strong statement of intent and purpose, and so the city council could not, you know, necessarily just on a whim reverse it.
What about like a conservancy or a land trust or something? Could that come into play?
Well, conservancies and land trusts generally are not in the business of owning land per se. Generally, like the Nature Conservancy or the Trust for Public Land generally winds up buying property and then transferring it to a public agency.
Okay.
So,
In this case, it's already in public hands, so.
right. So, I mean, if the city, I suppose, were to choose to, you know, give the property to some nonprofit, but, you know, that could entail some, you know, some real questions as well as to the continuity of governance of some kind of outside agency. There's been talk from time to time of transferring these parcels to the County Parks Department for inclusion in San Bernardino Mountain State and County Park. But from my perspective, I think, you know, having the city own them means that the city can make sure that they get maintained.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about
Probably to a higher standard, excuse me,
Sorry.
probably to a higher standard than what the county has the resources to do in its own property. So, you know, we have ongoing budget for vegetation management. You know, so there's those issues that would come up with the loss of control and perhaps, you know, the level of attention that they might get for maintenance and habitat restoration might not be so great if we're transferred to another agency.
I guess I'm just still reeling from the city selling the railroad easement up on South Hill that was public property, public land, and public access to the mountain to a private entity. So I'd like to figure out a way to make sure that these are indeed protected in perpetuity as open space and wild land. And
Yeah, I like I say, I don't know that there really is any way to really guarantee that, but other than,
conservation easement, perhaps?
well, it's something that I think to be looked into. You know, I'm just not. I don't know. I can't really. I guess I can't really answer your question in any more detail than that. There may be some way, you know, the city could deed a conservation easement to some other entity, but I don't know how that would work.
Okay.
So, what about the road easements on the map here? I see all the green, but there's these snaking ungreen areas in between them.
That's an interesting question. Those are called paper streets. They're not really road easements.
Okay.
Normally, when a piece of land is subdivided, the lots are platted out, and then the areas that are intended to be roads, they're either kept as an easement and held, you know, in group by the property owners, or they're dedicated to the public after the road improvements are constructed. These parcels were sold in what's called meets and bounds, and so the deed just contains a description saying, starting at this point, you go this many feet this way, here, here, to the point of beginning. It just describes a plot of land. So these areas that look like road easements are really just what was left over after they deeded off all the lots.
So who owns it?
Well, you're really testing my my brain cells here.
All right.
That was when you retired.
I know.
It's not Saturday anymore.
Yeah. Well, the best I can recollect how it came down was that the remainder turned out to be still held in trust by, I think, San Mateo Title Company or some title company. And that someone found this and said, we don't really want to have this. And they tracked down the descendants of the or owners that originally subdivided it, that set this all up, and told them, hey, guess what? You own X number of acres in Brisbane.
Long, thin.
Long, thin
Strips.
strips, and
Yeah.
so they came in, and I think they tried to find some way to monetize this. I think they wound up selling it to another company who still owns it to this day. I think they've managed to sell off a few small portions to various landowners, and I'm not sure which ones. I think the planning department keeps track of all that.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
but it does complicate. It complicates matters for someone wanting to build on any of the properties that are served by any of these so-called easements. So.
And we never went to go and purchase those as part of the
I think
preservation efforts?
I think the city did not want to purchase those as long as they were potentially could be made available for road purposes. So we didn't want to wind up. I think the city did not want to wind up owning any streets. If say this owner of number 70 was able to build, he could acquire this. And even if the city owned it, he could, through a court proceeding, acquire an easement by necessity down to the nearest public street. So by law, you can't basically landlock by buying up access. You can't landlock a piece of property, especially if it had all been in contiguous ownership at one time. So if there's any possibility that this could become a road of some sort, the city, I think, did not want to.
So once we had 70, then we could.
If the city ever can acquire lot 70, then yeah, this entire
Or at least down to 86,
yeah,
theoretically.
at least down to here, right, could be acquired, and probably should be.
Okay.
And that was kind of overlooked in this plan, so that was not really addressed in the open space plan specifically. Those were not since they did not have even assessor's parcel numbers at the time. They were not really even considered parcels, and so weren't specifically analyzed.
Okay. But it is an area of vulnerability.
Yeah. Well, I think it'd be vulnerable only if some developer were to try to put a road on it. Otherwise, it's not really buildable lot for anything else, I don't think. I think they're only like 30 feet wide or so.
Okay. And Harold Road and Annis Road are also in that same unique
Mm-hmm.
configuration?
But there are roads along those.
Are they considered public roads or private roads?
Right.
Or?
They're not public streets. They're not owned by the city, or owned or maintained by the city.
Are people allowed to walk there? Or is that like closed off? Like, what's the?
There is a private road notice there, which is sort of for boating, I think, on Annis.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. I've walked by it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether I broke the law when I did that.
No, I don't think you broke any city law by walking there.
Great.
Okay.
I
I'm
liked
not
it.
sure that the owner or the person that put up those signs owns the road. So
Right.
Do you know who does own the roads in that case? Or is it the same company? Title company or?
yeah, I at least the last time I checked, it was, I think, a company called. You don't know? Yeah. I'm thinking Toby Martin LLC, I think, but I think is the name of the company. Whether they still do or not, I don't know. I mean, you would have to check probably with Tim Toon in the planning department. He would probably still know.
Yeah, I think he retired too.
Yeah, but he's apparently not as retired as I am.
Yeah.
Every time I come in here, he seems to always be here, so.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do we have any more questions?
I'm sure if we read the whole report word to word, we probably would. But it's really an impressive document.
It is very much. Thank you for all your work, and thank you for coming in this evening. I'm sure that, you know, being the people we are, as soon as you walk out the door, we'll come up with some questions. And we'll ask Natalie maybe to forward those to you, and maybe if you have time, you can answer them
I will try my best.
When it's not Saturday.
when it's not Saturday. Okay.
Any other
Fred-
advice
Fred-
for us at all? It's a really open-ended question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
keep up the good work. So I was going to also then speak about the vegetation management plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, forgot about that part,
Get on the.
because we've got lots of ugly stuff growing up there. That's not in the book.
No, that's, was that on the side? I do not need this, no. Okay.
Both lamps, oh,
Yep.
Yep, it came back. Thank you.
it says
Natalie.
Open Space and Ecology Committee.
January 13th.
Oh, my memo, this document from Shelter Belt Builders and the map.
When you're talking about one, just tell me and I'll change the screen. So it's on the memo right now.
Okay. So as you know, for the past 11 years or so, the city has implemented an ongoing program to control or eradicate invasive non-native plant species on open space lands it owns in the Brisbane Acres. However, due to staff turnover, no work was done as this part of this program in 2014. I was asked to assist the staff in getting this program back on track and develop a proposal for a work plan for 2015. So that work plan is represented by the next two slides. In the past, the work program has kind of been split roughly between larger scale tree removal, eucalyptus and pine stands that are on some of the parcels, and spot treatment and monitoring of more pristine parcels and follow-up maintenance of areas that had to receive more intensive treatments, including stands of broom and eucalyptus. So examples of follow-up areas would be some of the areas in the acres above Paul Avenue. We removed quite extensive stands of eucalyptus trees. You have to go back every year or so to get ones that are sprouting for the stumps or sprouting from seeds that were still on the ground that have sprouted to maintain the oak woodland from returning back to eucalyptus forest. So, and then there's some larger areas, I think, above Harold Road and around above and below the Margaret Avenue water tank, where there was quite a large broom infestations, and some intense efforts were made to clear that out, and that requires some ongoing follow-up to make sure that the seed bank that remains in the soil when it resprouts, that's caught soon, so that the area doesn't return back to a dense stand of broom. So over time, the resprouts become less and less until finally, I think you can feel that you have successfully treated an area.
Till you have a fire.
So in last December, I met with Mark Heath of Shelter Belt Builders, which is the company that we've contracted with in the past to do the spot treatment of areas, the maintenance, the monitoring, the mapping, and follow-up work for us. And we put together a list of the work that that we felt needed to be done in 5 different areas of the Brisbane Acres. If you could show this map on the screen. So Area 1 is called Harold Road Site. It's basically the properties that we own kind of above Harold Road that kind of wrap around the eastern tip of San Bruno Mountain there. That's mostly grassland with some coastal scrub on the north-facing slopes. There's an area of where French broom was removed. There's fennel that keeps popping up in the area, and so they're to cruise that whole area and do spot treatments of broom and fennel reemergences or outliers.
Fred,
Yes.
do you know if they're doing scabiosa up there? Scabiosa is, it's a problem in many parts of the mountain, and I don't know whether it's present in these areas, but is it sort of covered in the species that they're
Well,
working on?
to my knowledge, I don't think that we focused up to this point, at least from when I was putting these together, on scabiose was not a part of the program.
Okay.
So that's not to say that it can't be or shouldn't be. I think it was just maybe considered a slightly lower priority.
It's spreading so fast.
Yeah.
I just wonder if maybe it could be included. And it's, it's good to get it early.
Right.
Where have you seen it spreading in this area?
As I said, I haven't been to these particular areas, so I don't know, but it's a problem just all over the place. And it seems to be following trails, and I suspect it's because people get the seeds caught in their pant legs, and animals get the seeds caught in their fur. And so, even over in Owl and Buckeye,
Allen Buckeye is very extensive with.
but sort of watching it over a period of several years, it spread along the trails, and it moved really fast. And so that's why I'm thinking that it would be good to include it in any areas where it shows up so that it doesn't spread anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I could talk with Mark Heath about that. I guess what I would recommend was that to have him, as he's out in these areas, to make observations of it and perhaps include it in his mapping.
That'd be good.
And then we can then evaluate what the extent of it is and maybe put it in the plan for 2016.
Okay.
And I'm sure if he's there, and there's a scabiosa right next to a fennel plant,
He'll pull it.
we can have him, take a look at it. But I mean, a focused effort on scabiosa would probably be something that might warrant doing in a future plan would be my recommendation.
Okay. And also he's keeping an eye out for any, like, ivy. Are these areas where there has been ivy yet or not?
Yes, so all of these, he's to cruise these, and if he finds any outliers or things popping up, to either treat or map for future treatment.
Okay.
We have that list. We have that list that Joe Cannon put together. Remember when he?
Yeah.
And there were some actually different plants on that list than those mentioned in here. So it might be a good idea to try to coordinate those a little bit. You remember what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, on the invasive species list.
But Joe was talking about several others as being really problematic and important to catch early. And so it might be a good idea if we could get a copy of that list to Shelter Belt so that they could be watching for those.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I forget when that was. When did Joe come? Does anybody remember?
Yeah, it was, I want to say it was our October meeting, wasn't it?
That doesn't sound right to me, but Natalie
It
can
wouldn't be
figure
hard to
out.
find the list.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure that yeah, okay.
He said there were some new ones that were just kind of starting to get launched that we should probably keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that.
Yeah, he's been on the mountain a lot, so he's
Okay.
really paying attention. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if
So-
he regularly covers most of these areas, I think it's good to have someone to give us that feedback information, because, maybe each of us goes up on the mountain once in a while, but we don't really cover the whole area. This is sort of the only organized
Yeah.
patrol, eyes on the ground that I know of, and so I'm kind of going by what I get reported back from him, so.
Yeah.
Maybe he'd even be willing to meet with you or something, but he gave us a long talk and had photographs and named
Okay.
several species that I wasn't familiar with that he said were shaping up to be real problems, so it'd be a good idea for you to have.
Yeah, no, I would love to have that. So if
Just
could
so you know
forward
who
that to me, I'd appreciate it.
He's the president of Mountain Watch right now, president of the board, and he has been our stewardship director. He teaches at
City College.
City College, and, he worked on the GGNRA programs and that type of thing. And he sort of was the person who got our nursery going. So he's very, very knowledgeable. And really, he outlines all the plans that we do with habitat restoration, so.
So the area number 2 on the map, the proposal is there's a Monterey pine that's probably a volunteer or maybe somebody planted a Christmas tree, I don't know, but we propose to get that out there and just cut it into pieces and leave it on site. There's some Cataniaster, and that's a kind of one that's becoming quite a bit more aggressive.
Are we still talking about area number 1 or?
No, we're talking about area number
Area
2.
Or 2, okay.
And that's this is kind of a small area here in the canyon. That's kind of focused right around the area of Lot 98, which is the most recent parcel that we've acquired. I think back in 2013 we acquired that parcel, and so it has not had any work done on it yet at all. So the only thing he noted from that parcel is the pine and the Cataniaster. There's a few patches of Cataniaster, so those are good to get before they get too big. Otherwise, they're almost impossible to eradicate. Area 3 is that kind of hillside in between the Harold Road area and Upper Firth Canyon, kind of the eastern side of Firth Canyon and those parcels that we own. That's kind of a large swath of grassland. So the idea is that's I think a pretty clean area. There's not a lot of problems up there. So the idea is to just patrol that area. It's a fairly large section, so they would cruise it, document, map, and treat any identified small populations of endangered species in those areas. So I can make sure they look out for Cataniaster in that area too, because that's kind of the idea is we don't really know what's up there, so we didn't really identify what species they're going to be looking at up there.
Okay. Good.
Area number 4 is the area around and above the Margaret Avenue tank, including that canyon that's to the east that goes up nearly to the border of San Bruno Mountain Park. And there's some broom areas that need follow-up for broom removal, fennel. There's some Cataniaster infestations and some pine trees that have volunteered in that area as well. So
I'm quite sure there's scabious up there, quite a bit of it.
I believe there is, yeah. And there's some eucalyptus resprouts on, I think can't remember what number parcel is, but it's the one below the water tank off on the other side of the canyon where we removed a small grove of pines and eucalyptus, and there's some resprouts on that parcel. So. And then area 5 would be the area upper Paul and Margaret Avenue, and that like Upper Castaños Canyon area. And so most of that is follow-up work from the eucalyptus and broom removal work that's been done in the past up there. So there's some resprouts of broom patches and quite a few eucalyptus resprouts up in there. So there's some Cataniaster as well.
And the eucalyptus that's up there, that's all on private property, what's left?
The large stands that are left are all on private property, yeah. So if you get up to, you go up past that last house.
Yep.
And then the road turns to dirt.
Yep.
Those trees that go up there, that's this area here, which is
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
privately owned
Yeah.
Lot 79. And then some of them are on the rear portions of the lots that front on Paul Avenue.
Right.
Their backyards, so those properties that have quite thick stands of eucalyptus, but that's private property also.
Can I ask about an area that's not on the acres map? Right at the top of San Mateo Lane, San Mateo Lane meets Kings. And not the canyon where the Waldo House is, but the empty canyon that's right there.
Right where the street comes in like that?
Yeah. Do you know who owns that property? Is it privately owned? Is it part of the park? Where it comes down and actually comes to Kings Road?
Yeah, I think the private lots come like almost to a little point right there at Kings, and then beyond that is the county park.
Okay, because we have a very heavy infestation of ivy now starting to move up that canyon above Kings Road from the canyon where the eucalyptus used to be along San Mateo Lane, and then those eucalyptus were removed, and then that property has not been maintained since then. The trees they planted don't seem to be there anymore, and
Just to be clear, you're talking about the area right across Kings from the intersection of San Mateo and Kings? So uphill?
Yeah.
Okay.
uphill. The ivy has now spread across the street and going uphill
Yeah, it looks,
into the habitat.
it looks like the San Mateo basically comes out right about where the
Right.
town boundary is. So you're talking about the area underneath the power lines going up that canyon there, right?
Yeah, and just actually right along the road, that it's just really starting to move right on up.
Yeah.
And part of it's because the eucalyptus are no longer suppressing the ivy in the canyon. The canyon used to have so much heavy litter that there wasn't much ivy in the San Mateo Lane Canyon. And now it's a mess.
So the area, that first 100-foot strip is an area where the city works with the county to reduce fire fuel loads. There's like a fire buffer, 100-foot fire buffer that goes along there, goes up a little ways as far as you can get to the left, and then all along behind Trinity, all the way down to the end. There's
Right. But right in that V where San
Right.
Mateo Lane hits Kings Road and then the canyon goes on up open space, there is a heavy infestation of ivy there. Is there any way that we can add that to this plan, or?
It's not really our property is the thing, it's county land.
But don't we own the, what would I call the easement for the road?
Easement for the road.
Like the road isn't 50 feet wide, but but we own.
Oh, are you talking
50 feet
about
wide.
the San Mateo Lane Canyon?
And along Kings Road.
So if you like follow
On the uphill side of Kings Road?
Uh-huh.
if you went directly straight, if you went like where San Mateo is, you crossed Kings and then kept walking right up the hill there.
Right.
That's what you mean. Yeah.
It's really the extension
Have
of
a
the
street
San.
right away where 40 feet, we might own up to 10 feet on one side of the
Right,
road.
right. Yeah, and this, I was only looking at the Brisbane acres here for this. And so that's kind of this program and this budget. It's $15,000 for vegetation management in the Brisbane acres.
Okay,
So something like that would be a little bit beyond the scope, I think, of this.
okay.
Maybe that's our next Habitat Restoration Day.
Yeah, we got to get a
Before
handle
it gets
on it really
started.
quick, because it's going to just run right up the mountain
Yeah,
like
that would
crazy.
be a great area for a volunteer because it's accessible to streets and some of these areas where you have infestations, you kind of need to hire pros because you just can't get the public up there. But this might
Right.
be a really good volunteer kind of drive, just
We
like
should
what they did
consider
in
that for conservation day.
Yeah, yeah, we really should. Okay,
Sounds good to me.
okay.
So I take it, Natalie, you're going to find the list from Joe and get it to Fred? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And can we get a copy of it? I'd like a hard copy of this. Okay.
So, and this slide. So this spreadsheet here is the proposal from the contractor. So it fits within the budget, the $15,000 budgeted for this program for the fiscal year. So, I mean, my recommendation would be to approve this, and we'll go ahead and execute a contract with Shelter Belt to have this done, and I'll convey the concerns about Catani Aster and
Scabiosa.
Gabiosa.
I'm sorry, Scabiosa, and
Joe's list, the
and
plans.
then Joe Cannon's list, and I'll try to incorporate as much as I can into this, or incorporate it into, what we would be doing next year.
Okay. I mean, it seems like it should be covered under 3.1, any populations of invasive species,
Right.
so.
Yes.
But it would be great to know as much as we could about what's going on with the other parcels too, even if they can't be removed,
Right.
just like what's up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then we can send, we can maybe supplement with a volunteer crew to go and take out scabiosa.
Yeah. Or maybe next year for this area number 4, I think you're right, you may find some more significant stands of scabiosa, because
Yeah.
they kind of cluster along that trail, and which as a heavily used trail corridor goes up to the mountain. So
Yeah.
we might need to focus on that a little more intensely next year.
And then if he could report back, or his crew report back, if they've had any sightings at all of, the other bad boys, like
Okay.
any sprouts of pampas grass, any, oxalis, some of the other
Pampas
that-
grass is so bad, I wish we could just say, remove it if it's up there.
Yeah.
It-
I don't think
It just
there-
turns
I
horrible.
don't know that I've
I-
seen any up
Yeah, I
there.
haven't seen any
But
pampas
there's-
grass in that part of the mountain.
I haven't either, but it's showing up everywhere now.
Yeah, it's spreading various places, so,
Yeah.
so it's something to keep an eye out for, and getting it while it's small is definitely the thing to do.
Yeah.
And I've seen it up near the radio towers in the summit, quite a bit.
Yep.
Up there.
And it's in Wax Myrtle Canyon, and
Really?
it's over above the Southern Shell Mound, and it's,
Oh, is it?
yeah. It's really, and it's all over the southern slopes, lower southern slopes. This, so do we take action on this, Karen, and, or do we send it to the council with our blessings and
No,
approval,
it's,
or-
it's in the open space and ecology budget to execute
Okay.
vegetation management plan, so I think it's just up to us. That if you
Right.
adopt the plan that Fred's brought forward, he's going to work with contractor and
Okay, so I move that we adopt the plan.
With caveats.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and get Fred's list to him, and
Joe's list of friends.
Joe's list to Fred, pardon me, and see if we can potentially work in any of those, at least observation and,
Yeah, I
of
don't
those
think that's a
things.
problem, and I don't think that should hold us up from going ahead and adopting this, because it's already winter of 2015, and if they don't get going on that, it's not going to happen this year.
Right.
And the
Okay.
longer you wait, the more there is to do. So I highly recommend that we go ahead and approve this.
I'm
I
gonna-
second the motion.
Yeah. All right.
I would like Kima to be able to speak.
Oh, no, I was going to second.
Okay.
That's fine.
All in
Fine, beat
favor?
to it.
Aye.
And all opposed? Nobody, okay.
Get on it, Fred, as quick as
I will.
possible, because
Thanks,
Rome is
Fred.
burning.
Yeah, and if we were asking Fred to get on it, then Natalie also needs to send Fred that information, so. Just making sure. I mean, I know you know Natalie, but if everybody's going to be all excited, then we need to be excited too.
Fred, do you think getting Joe's paper is going to be enough, or would you rather meet with him, and should we try to facilitate that?
Maybe if I could answer that question better once I see the paper. If there's stuff on there
Gotcha.
that I've never seen, I wouldn't recognize if it, if I stumbled on it, then yeah, I would probably want to have somebody show it to me.
Okay.
Otherwise, I may be know what they look like, or Mark Heath would know, so.
Okay.
Mark Heath will know, and, because he sits on the TAC, Joe sits on the TAC.
Right.
They all know, and he's every bit as aware of
Yeah.
what's up there as Joe is.
He does this
Okay.
for a living, so.
Yeah.
I know it's called Shelter Belt Builders, I'm not sure why, but he does basically have, wildlands restoration
Okay, great.
management, so.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you.
Thank you.
I'm dying up here, so I'd like to get on to approval of the minutes.
Well, let's see, I only had one thing on the minutes. If I could find them again. On page 2, under section 5, education and outreach, sustainability education. I thought that was just the education committee, not sustainability and education. And I think that confuses it with the sustainability subcommittee.
I don't
No.
think we have a sustainability subcommittee anymore. I think the sustainability education got rolled into the education and outreach subcommittee.
I think maybe what Michelle's referring to is the Brisbane Sustainability Committee.
Uh-huh,
That's what you mean, right?
yeah,
Okay.
And that still exists.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'm the rep.
Okay.
okay.
We did have some different sustainability things going on at some point, but that word is getting used everywhere these days.
Yeah. Then the only other thing is under 9 staff updates, PCA status will grant applications for funds. San Bruno Mountain Watch is working with Colma, Daly City, and possible parts of San Francisco. They're also working with South San Francisco. That
Oh, good.
should be added there. And then I did have a question on the Title 24 training, where it says Fieldman would like to invite South San Francisco and Salmon would like to send an announcement to Golden State Lumber and contractors that hold business license in Brisbane. Well, I'd like to do that, but I'm hoping you did do that. So I don't know how to interpret that. Do you do that when we have it in the minutes? Did we do that? Okay.
Okay.
Because I just was like, oh, yeah, well, I would like to, but it doesn't mean I'm going to do it. So I just was curious about that.
Yeah, we're conducting outreach. We've sent it to the agencies, and I don't know that we've sent it to all the contractors on the list. I think that's probably on me to kind of, the number of contractors that have the business licenses are like 200 to winnow down that list. But we are at the counter at the building department handing out flyers and telling local contractors, so.
We have 200 contractors in Brisbane with
Well,
business
no,
license?
they don't just have a business license to work here in one form or another, so not all of them are going to be interested in a training that we put on.
Oh, well, maybe we could limit it to all the contractors in Brisbane that have a business address in Brisbane,
Or close,
or close, and
Yeah.
send that out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, as soon, because it's coming up really soon, and I don't think they know about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was part of our thing to reach beyond Brisbane. It was part of our goal for this training, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But definitely to reach within.
okay.
Other than that, I don't have any other changes. Does anybody else have any changes to the minutes?
No.
No,
I move that we approve the minutes.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, okay. So, what's chairing committee member matters? Good God, I've taken too much cold medicine. What? What was that supposed to be?
That's, oral communication is for the public, and then
Okay.
share and committee matters is any of the items that you guys want to discuss and talk about agendizing at future meetings.
I thought I would kick off a really long, boring discussion for the next 4 hours about, no, just kidding. Sorry, Barbara. I was waiting to see a reaction from you.
Yeah. I'm so medicated at this point. You'd have to come and poke me with.
About what?
No,
I'm all ears.
the Brisbane Recreational Causeway.
Well,
Yay. Okay, go.
No, I'm just kidding.
actually, on that, I would like us to consider, for our Habitat Restoration Day, doing the San Mateo Lane Canyon and the above San Mateo Lane Canyon instead of Costañas Canyon.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, it's a done deal unless somebody comes up with something else. they want us to
The
do.
thing is, can we do that if it's part of the county's property?
I guess it depends.
I mean,
Or-
we don't really know what the boundary lines are at this point. I mean, it's fine with me.
Well,
but-
if it is part of the county property, then we just need to ask them for a site activity permit.
Okay,
And-
sounds good to
And the
me.
canyon that runs along San Mateo Lane, I believe, is Brisbane City property, correct?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, if we can do it, it's perfectly fine.
So it's just under consideration, so I think that we should consider doing that and maybe, like we had 2 habitat restoration days last year, maybe have 2 this year.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good idea, but maybe staff could check and see whether we do need a permit.
Yeah, I mean, I
because-
think the first thing to do is to check and see how far off the road the county property starts. I mean, do we got 10, does Brisbane have 10 feet? Do they have 50 feet? You know, where,
Yeah, that's easy enough to do.
yeah. I
How
mean,
far, how big an area do you propose to do?
Well, the canyon that runs parallel to San Mateo Lane, and
Isn't some of that private property, though?
I don't know exactly where the delineation is, but we took out the city took out the eucalyptus trees and planted other things that aren't doing well there.
Okay.
So I don't know how much is owned by the city, but we'll definitely not invade private property, just like we don't when we
Yeah.
do Costañas Canyon, some of which is private property along the perimeters, and then above it. But we're not alone in our Habitat Restoration Day efforts. We're joined by the PBNR, right, and San Bruno Mountain Watch. So we should consult with them to see if they're interested in participating in doing that area.
We
Yeah.
still need to decide if we want to go across Kings Road and do the uphill
Yeah,
section.
definitely.
We need to, I guess, figure out how big an area we want to do.
If you do a walk by, you'll see it's pretty clear.
Michelle, could you get back to Natalie with how many feet uphill of the roadway you think needs to be cleared? And Karen and Natalie, can you check and see how much uphill of the roadway Brisbane owns? And then maybe we don't even need to get an activity permit.
Yeah, that's part of what.
Maybe
I'm
we
getting
do,
at.
maybe we don't. But if you look at that and you look at that and you talk to each other, then we should be able to figure out step B.
Sure.
Sound
So
good?
did someone want to form a subcommittee? Because we do have to meet, the next step is to meet with Park and Rec and to meet with Mountain Watch to discuss all the details.
Do we need a subcommittee?
We normally do.
Okay.
Okay. I guess I will be on the subcommittee.
Okay. We usually do 2, I mean, I think it was our goal to do 2 habitat restoration days going forward. One, and I'm perfectly happy if one of those we just, do our own thing and then the other one is coordinated with San Bruno Mountain Watch and PBNR or whatever, it's all good with me.
You are a drug, aren't you? Okay, let's move on to the next item quick.
Was there someone else that wanted to join Michelle?
Too many subcommittees already.
Yeah, I can't
I
do it
think
right
I
now.
can be a subcommittee of one on this and work with the PBNR. It's not a problem.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, they can add members and that'll form your subcommittee.
I can do 3 of these subcommittee reports.
Oh, you know what? On item number 5, Chair and Committee Matters, I would like everybody to get out their calendar and schedule our next subcommittee meetings. If you haven't already scheduled a subcommittee meeting, I'm like I said, this is my new thing of making people do it in committee here so that it doesn't get away from us.
That reminds me, I think the energy subcommittee is supposed to schedule to meet tomorrow, isn't that right? At 1 o'clock? It's on my calendar.
I don't have it on my calendar, but if it's on your calendar, it is now on my calendar.
I think it was for last week.
Is that right?
I don't know, that might have just been a conversation, but I'm available.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
And we've already scheduled the one for the PCA. It'll be on Monday, the
26th.
Barbara, are you
At
down for 1 o'clock?
5:30.
Yeah, I'm down for 1 o'clock tomorrow.
And the ad hoc subcommittee for the Brisbane Acres and Lot coverage, I can't schedule because I haven't written the letter yet. So, but I know what I need to write. And Michael's not here anyway.
Yeah, and you've already got your PCA subcommittee scheduled?
Yep. And education and outreach,
Let's just, we'll touch each item as we go down the list. Right now, I just want to make sure everybody's scheduled. So Glenn, do you want to also meet tomorrow? Do you have more time to hang out tomorrow and we can talk about the permeable paving, landscaping,
I
and,
thought we were done with it.
okay.
Don't we have a draft letter?
I don't think so.
We
Was that
drafted a letter.
Right, was that the letter that you sent to me and then you wanted me to format and then I sent back? I might have sent it back and then was waiting for,
I think
Oh.
it's right here in our packet called Don't Pave the Earth.
yes, that's it.
Yeah. Item 7A.
Okay. So, I had sent some ideas, and wanted to bounce some ideas off of Glenn and Natalie. I didn't consider this a done deal yet. I had added some language about commercial properties and hadn't heard anything back about that, so, you know,
Oh, where's the language about commercial properties?
the colors are not showing up on this copy.
Here, would you like to look at this copy? It's got plenty of color.
So you can see all the revisions I made in there. I'm not sure what color they're showing up in there.
Okay, so the red ones are mine.
So I would guess the blue ones, but I'm not sure. I don't have it in front of me, so.
Yeah, so I guess it is still kind of draftish.
Yeah.
Um,
Can we choke that chicken tomorrow?
Well, I would like to hear from the rest of the Open Space
Okay.
Committee.
Oh, yeah,
About
sure.
what they think.
Yeah.
Well, I think you guys are definitely on the right track, and to be honest, I didn't read through the entire thing, because I kind of, we discussed it all, and I have faith in your ability to do this.
I think the main thing, and I believe we did discuss this before, was that we thought that after the building footprint and parking requirements, that the remaining lot space, 49% of it, should be devoted to landscaping. And I think we talked about that in December.
Yes.
We did. And I think you, in city 40% left uncovered by structures, but in cases where remaining open area consists entirely of concrete, its habitat, ecological, and amenity value is near zero. That, that doesn't. come
Does not need an apostrophe, yeah.
Landscaping requirements. So I think you pretty much covered it in this first paragraph, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if the committee approves, maybe we can just clean it up by email.
Sure.
And do you guys want to see it again?
I don't need to, do you, Kima?
All right, so if you approve the thrust of it,
Yeah.
we can
Okay.
just finish it up by email
fine.
and clean it up and send you a final version. And Barbara and I can do that.
Okay.
And then send the committee a final version.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good with that. Do we need to vote on that? I don't think we do.
I don't think we do we?
Nope, okay.
Is it an action? I don't think it's an action. All right.
Could somebody do me the favor of sending me the version with all the edits on it?
You know what, I'm
A
going to give
digital
you my
version?
printed copy.
No, I just want a digital version.
Oh, a
so that-
digital version, okay.
Natalie, do you have that?
I'll send it.
Could you? Thank you. To Barbara and me. And
Yeah. Did that get in the packet or no?
It's
in the- okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's here, so, okay. But I guess some of the stuff got stripped out, so. All right, we'll get back to that. So are all of our subcommittees scheduled? Everybody's scheduled that needs to be scheduled?
what about education and outreach?
Well, I started to, but
Yeah.
You said you,
Yeah, I didn't actually, so Michelle and I met, and we sort of had a close-up meeting of the things that we had talked about previously. And I believe, Glenn, you're going to be joining me on that subcommittee in the future?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Michelle, you're not on that committee anymore?
no, but I did want to give the report on what we talked about.
Oh, absolutely.
So scheduling is different than the report.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So you and I will need to schedule something going forward. Do you want to tackle that after the January 14th
Don't the
energy?
three of us need to schedule something going forward? That's what I'm asking.
Oh. I
Are
don't
we a
think
three-member
can, 'cause
subcommittee?
Then we can't have a three-member subcommittee because we
Oh.
have quorum.
We don't have enough members on the panel
Yeah.
to have a
So
three.
that's why I had
Okay.
a wrap-up meeting with
Gotcha, okay.
Michelle, and then you and I need to move forward when we want to.
Okay.
So,
So you might want to decide after we do the report.
okay.
Kind of excited about what we talked about.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to number 6. Trying to stick to the agenda here. Energy plan update and subcommittee update. Glenn, I have a few things I would like to say, and I'm sure staff has some things they'd like to say. Do you have anything you'd like to contribute, Glenn?
Not right now. I've been out of town for 3 weeks, and so I'm still hoping to get at least some of the draft text I'm supposed to have done for tomorrow done.
Okay,
But I don't have a whole lot new
okay.
to add at this point.
All right. I think I'd like to start, if that's all right with staff? Okay.
Oh.
So, over my vacation, I did manage to read the Sonoma County Climate Action Plan, and I did manage to read the San Mateo County template, and I did manage to read Natalie's notes on the San Francisco and Berkeley plans. They were all excellent documents. A lot of them were a lot of aspects were kind of pie in the sky. So as we go forward, I'd like to think about how we can make our plan a little more benchmarkable, a little more practicable. And I understand why those plans were that way, because getting down to the nitty-gritty on some of these things, it's like, oh my God, how are you going to make anybody do anything? Which is an issue we've already run into on our subcommittee meetings and discussed greatly at length. Concerning that, like 5 seconds before I ran out the door, I ran across this AB 1103, which is Energy Benchmarking and Disclosure Law, is now in effect as of January 1st, 2014. So if any property changed hands, or this only applies to commercial properties, this is one of the things we've been talking about, but it only applies to commercial properties, but if the building is offered for sale, lease, finance, or refinance, then they're supposed to disclose the building's energy consumption profile as built in the Energy Star portfolio management system. I don't know if any commercial property actually changed hands in 2014. I would guess just by odds that something did. And since we were talking about this and yet completely unaware of this program, I'm wondering, if this requirement was met by any of those properties that changed hands in Brisbane. Does the planning department know? Or I guess I don't know if it would be planning department. Who would be overseeing that this requirement is actually met? Because I read through a couple pages of information. I just printed out the first one. I printed out the couple pages of information. I read through them and I couldn't find who is actually responsible for making sure this requirement is met.
I'm along the same lines. I'm kind of wondering how businesses were notified of this requirement, because it's a state law. So does that mean that the California Energy Commission or somebody sent them a letter, or what?
We've all got some things to, I think Glenn and I and staff have some things to run down regarding this because this is important. This provides a framework for some of the things we want to start tackling vis-a-vis residential property. But it's like so sexy to see it already here for commercial property, like woo! I also talked to the San Mateo County Association of Realtors, and I was really hoping to meet with them before this meeting. Unfortunately, with 4 different schedules, we were not able to find overlapping availability, so it will probably be later this month. And Paul, real quick, said that they're not going to tolerate or there's any point of sale requirements. So, yeah, so we need, and I said, fine, we need to find other ways to make this, positive and enforceable. So we're going to have a meeting, and, I'm sure you can come too if you want, Glenn, and we're just going to try and figure out what kinds of what shapes we can play with that will make legislation or requirements that are acceptable to the realtors.
Yeah, let me know when it is.
Yeah, so we'll find out. And I think that's all I have to share regarding the energy plans subcommittee update. Staff?
Say, we talked at our meeting about, specifically, we tried to work on some measures, and we talked about solid waste and want to investigate the diversion rate goals and how they're calculated. And we talked in some detail about getting the schools involved, and one of the suggested measures is food scrap collection, and we want to survey that after the first year and see actually how effective it is, and if it's not being utilized in a widespread way, how we can further promote it and get people involved. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about a sustainable vendor policy at community events, and how when you have composts and recycle and garbage, how you get people to use all 3, and that you have to have a hired person or a volunteer directing, and that there's a training process, and maybe in time that wouldn't be something that would be needed. So I think what I took from this part is that we got some specific ideas for the solid waste measures, and we're kind of trying to talk about the difficult out-of-the-box things and put some measures, get some measures kind of in the form that we can draft them so that we can away at this. There's a lot of interest in seeing us have a plan by the summer, and there's a lot that's done after we select proposed measures. There's a lot to be done to do calculations about what that achieves for us. So did you want me to talk about anything else? We talked about audits of commercial buildings, and kind of had a lot of little questions about how we can get things done in terms of getting audits and getting commercial buildings more energy efficient. So kind of chewing on those topics.
Mm-hmm. As I was reading through Sonoma County's plan, one of the opening early paragraphs, it says, these are the things we're dealing with, and we're not dealing with airports or airplane travel, and it lists like 4 or 5 things that they're just arbitrarily excluding from their climate action plan because they are beyond their sphere of influence, or they give a couple of other reasons.
You mean like the 101?
Yeah, so that got me thinking again and I'm not sure it's even good to question this at this point, but I just want to hear it one more time. I know we decided to do an energy plan versus a climate plan because of 101, but if Sonoma County did a climate plan and just arbitrarily said that we're not going to tackle these major sources of carbon, could we, and would there be any benefit to switching to a climate action plan and just saying, but we're not going to touch 101? I don't know, but that was something that was rolling around in my mind.
Yeah, and we've batted that back and forth. I don't know if we have, but it has been batted back and forth for a while since I was kind of tasked with getting it started. And we're not, the general plan's going to deal with land use, and it's the land use part that deals with circulation and transportation that generates greenhouse gases, and that's under the Planning Commission's purview. That's the main reason that we're not calling it climate action.
Right. We discussed that at that meeting.
Okay.
I think I've mentioned this before too, but part of the problem here with, comparing Sonoma County and the city of Brisbane is that Brisbane as a city has pretty limited authority over transportation,
Yeah.
including 101. And so I am still planning to get in touch with Dave Pine to talk to him about the county adopting a county action plan instead of a county climate action plan instead of leaving it all to the cities. Because I think there are just a lot of things that, especially cities the size of Brisbane, cannot do. And transportation, which was kind of inherently crossing boundaries,
Yeah.
it's really not something Brisbane can do on its own. It's not even something that larger cities can do on their own. And so I pretty strongly feel that the county ought to be stepping up to the plate here, and I plan to push for it. And I'll work on that as soon as I get my syllabi and stuff like that done. I'm still trying to catch up, but I think I mentioned that to everybody here.
Yeah.
But I still feel that way.
At our last RICAPS working group, it was kind of an end of the year wrap up, and they had a presentation from Jim Eggemeyer, if I'm saying his name right, and they formed a new, well, I guess it's a pilot program, but in San Mateo County, an Office of Sustainability, and he's their former planning and building director, now moved to this position, and I don't know if it was him or another staff person talked about that they first did a county operations climate action plan and used the RICAPS model for all their public facilities, and then they did an energy efficiency climate action plan, and building and planning was the lead, and they used a consultant to develop it. So they have a plan. But the county, when you say the county, that's the unincorporated areas of the county. It's not like an overall.
Sonoma County's wasn't. Their climate action plan covered all the cities in the county, and part of the logic of that, I mean, there are a number of logics to it. One of, among them is transportation, and transportation is, even the county is not really big enough. I mean, if you look at relations between, say, San Francisco County and San Mateo County, but the county is still a lot bigger than Brisbane, and it's a lot bigger than San Mateo and all the other cities. So it makes more sense if you're dealing with transportation to do it on a county level. But another reason it makes sense is we're going to have however many cities there are in San Mateo County that are charged with developing their own climate action plans. And they are going to be somewhat different despite this RICAPS thing and the sort of template that we've been given. And so it seems to me that the county needs to take the bull by the horns and do this on a county level. And the final reason is the county has the resources. I don't object to Brisbane doing a climate action plan particularly, but the fact is it's taking time, hours, yours, money for a consultant. Would it be smarter to try to do much of that planning at the county level where the resources are? And we've talked about some of this before too, like, revolving fund. Does it make sense for Brisbane to try to start its own revolving fund? At the same time, San Mateo is doing it, and South City, and San Bruno, and all the rest. Or does it make sense to have a revolving fund for the county? And to me, that question just answers itself. Does it make sense for Brisbane to negotiate with banks about financing, or does it make sense for the county to negotiate with banks about financing, et cetera?
Well, but keep in mind, like, 2/3 of the agencies have already developed their climate action plan in San Mateo County. So they've done it. They have an adopted plan.
Yeah, I mean, my
So
question was just about calling it an energy action plan versus a climate action plan.
And the consultant that CCAG paid for each agency to use as one way to distribute their resources, their
Yeah.
countywide resources, and we're not paying for the consultant that's come in. They're suggesting an environmental action plan because we're adding those solid waste measures.
Okay,
Oh, I like that.
sure.
I think we
I
talked about that.
I still think at some point, it doesn't make sense for the cities to be moving forward on their own, but it makes sense to do at least some of the stuff at the county level. Maybe there's some reasonable division between county and city.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, we definitely want them to take the lead on some of these ideas, but the council has directed us to prepare a plan for the city of Brisbane, and we
yeah,
are.
yeah, and I want to move forward with that, and I think you're right, though, Glenn, that transportation at least really ought to be dealt with at the county level, because what am I going to do, say, was thinking about what are we going to do in our environmental action plan, go try and bully Samtrans, I don't know.
And that's a great example.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's basically what that part of that plan would look like. I don't know. All right. Lovely.
So, at the chair's pleasure, I'll go ahead and do the subcommittee reports for B, C, and D, since we already took care of A. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So, Barbara and I met.
We already took care of A, you're right.
Barbara and I met on the education committee, and we went back and looked at our original, which Barbara brought, our original grand plan about the big issues and the little issues,
Well, we were ambitious.
and how to, deal with them, because the big issues are like climate change, sea level rise, and education at a big level. And then there's the everyday issues about water use, soil, and all this. And we had this all mapped out on the board, and it was really clever. And we were trying to figure out a way to approach all of these, because it seems like kind of an overwhelming task of biting off one thing at a time. And while I was sitting there looking at the board, and I guess it just clicked in my head for the other things that I've been working on or thinking about, is to produce a series of homemade video shorts, YouTubes basically, community-based, unprofessional, contests with kids, contests with adults. Many people's cameras and cell phones have the ability to record video, and to just start recording these, 2 to 5 minute shorts by community members. And I wanted to actually have an example to bring tonight, but I didn't get it done. Maybe involve it as part of the science fair. It could be as simple as, I've been thinking about this ever since we had our meeting, Barbara, of like, I'm going to show you everything that goes in the green dumpster now. But don't put that cat litter in there. And, just have all these funny things and have them accessible through Facebook and through the city website, and maybe have them as like little shorts on the city website. And maybe in a few months after we get enough of these short videos, people submitting these short videos, that we actually have a mini film festival and show them.
Love it.
And have them as a kind of a community involvement. It could be something as simple as putting a bucket in your shower and then dumping it in your yard every time you take a shower afterwards, or it could be, some thing about the gyre, or, so we can deal with the big issues, and we can deal with the everyday lifestyle issues, that things that have to change in order for us to move forward. So it kind of encompasses all of education at the same time.
I really like the idea of getting the kids involved in doing these.
Yeah, and the seniors and everybody else,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great. But the kids, I was thinking partly because, that's one way to get their parents to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. And make them, entertaining, funny, serious, whatever. So.
Okay, so to that, I would like to add, I got a couple other names of people who do videography in town. I was going to compose a group letter to, haven't done it yet, to suggest that one of them take up the flag and, because Littman is looking for after-school, people to lead after-school programs, and see if one of them want to, for a few bucks, take up the lead of, here's how to take a passable video with your iPad, don't set your subject right in front of the setting sun,
That'd be good.
Also, San Mateo County Library System is having a short film competition currently.
Oh, cool.
So it's the ages of 12 to, I know because my son's 11. So the ages they're asking for submissions is 12 to something. So I need to, or Glenn and I or something can work on, promoting that. There's free video equipment, but in Pacifica, but not in Brisbane. And they have editing studios and equipment and stuff that you can pull out from the library system in Pacifica. So there's 2 prongs that I've been trying to move forward on that video idea. The library has their new manager installed now, and I had a very nice conversation with him. And they're more than happy to dedicate a shelf to open space and ecology.
Great.
We would just need to come up with some signage, and then he recommended picking about 20 different pieces of media, books, videos, whatever. I realized after I walked away that I need to get a little clearer with him about how the books are going to be returned to that collection. If we donate private things to that shelf, how do then we make sure that things come back to that shelf, as opposed to if we pull things out of the regular collection and make sure they just don't go back into the regular collection.
Where's the shelf going to be? Is it going to be in that front section of the library?
He was actually, I'm going to try and push for the front section where people pick up all of their library holds, but he was pointing at that first library shelf where you pick up your holds, but the back end of it, they sort of have miscellany there.
Oh.
And I want to see if I can get an even more prominent location. He also said that possibly a shelf right inside the front door would be a possibility. So we at least have a green light. The logistics still need to be worked out, but we have a green light. We can do that. We can put that shelf there, and then, people who want quick environmental fixes can pick things off of that shelf and get some rapid education going.
So on the acres lot coverage, which is item C, Michael and I met, and we decided to simplify our request to the city and just write a letter, which I haven't done yet, but the gist of it would be lot coverage issues to ensure enclosed courtyard is not considered as open space, and sort of just very simple, very straightforward letter asking them to take up the charge with the planning commission, and that we would be happy to lend any other support. And then on the PCA subcommittee.
So for the PCA, I have trouble with on buttons. Okay, so the PCA subcommittee met for the first time before tonight's open space and ecology meeting, and it was, I think, a very productive meeting where we outlined a bunch of potential PCA areas within and surrounding Brisbane, and I think feel fairly confident that we left no stone unturned or out of a PCA, but if we do, we'll write up another one for that as well. And then our follow-up actions are meeting on 2 Mondays from now to start filling out the individual PCA paperwork for each area.
And to look at the map, yeah.
Yeah, and to create a map.
I just really wanted to thank the staff for being well prepared for the meeting today,
Yeah.
and really having all your kind of ducks in a row, and having done all the reading and working with Dell from Mountain Watch to get ready for that. It made it go a lot smoother. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that all that you wanted to say on item D?
Yeah, let's move on to
Yep.
staff updates, because I really want to go home. I've been here since 5 o'clock. Actually, I've been here since 4:30. Staff
Oh,
updates?
one thing I wanted to say about the PCA is that I charged all of the committee to send at least 2 or 3 thoughts to the PCA subcommittee. I must admit, I failed on that, but I think that I would like to reiterate that, and maybe the next meeting, we could all just send, 2 or 3 thoughts about any aspect that we feel might be important or might be overlooked, because I do want to actively support our subcommittees as a committee at large.
Awesome. And feel free to send any suggestions for areas to Natalie, and she can give them to us in advance of the next meeting.
Great. Okay, please, staff.
Okay, on Thursday night, the 15th, the council has on its agenda to select to a subcommittee or liaisons or an ad hoc subcommittee to look again at the green building ordinance, because I think the planning staff just wants to ensure that they're on the same page as the joint subcommittee in terms of repealing both the Build It Green residential and the lead commercial, the parts of the green building ordinance that we had adopted before. So I don't know if they're going to look at that differently, or they just want to kind of talk to a council subcommittee. So once those get appointed, then there will be another meeting or 2 with the green building subcommittee members from OSEC.
Excellent.
Can't wait.
Oh, I think this was, do you want me to talk about this? The RICAP's working group last month, we just wanted to mention that when the county, the San Mateo County Office of Sustainability was doing their presentation to us, they talked about a grant that they were pursuing for vulnerability assessment regarding risk and adaptation planning and funding for all agencies that front waterways, so that would include Brisbane along the bay. They had not found out if they'd gotten that funding, but they're definitely looking at that in a countywide manner. And I just talked about earlier about San Mateo County developing 2 levels of their energy plan. And they also are looking at a community choice aggregation idea, such as what was implemented in Sonoma County and Marin County, I believe. I understand they got Board of Supervisor approval, and they are putting together a timeline and just figuring out what the next phases are. So the county is looking into that. And is everyone familiar with that?
That's for energy?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great news. That's amazing.
What I've understood about it, and I don't have a lot of knowledge, but is that when they put it in place in Sonoma and Marin counties, what the law that they passed gives you still get a PG&E energy bill, but you're in this alternate purchase program where you will buy a certain amount of the energy is green, and some of it is normal PG&E generated energy.
Is this the CCA?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are 2 or 3 options to opt out, but you're automatically in that program to start with, because they said not enough people would opt in if the choice was made that way, so that's what the law allows you to do. And then there's also an option to purchase all green energy, and it was costing, I don't remember, 10-15% more than PG&E energy, but they're beginning the exploratory phase of doing that for San
That's
Mateo
not,
County.
though, that's not going to be a municipal power district, though. That's different, right?
Right, it's community choice aggregation, so I don't
Yeah.
know if I could
Yeah.
explain why it's different, but
Okay, yeah, I'll look it up. Cool.
We've already mentioned Title 24 training. Some people have RSVP'd. Golden State Lumber, South San Francisco, Daly City has also gotten the invite. So that'll be coming up soon.
I think it's really important that if at all possible, we get out a quick mailing at least to all of the local contractors who have, businesses in Brisbane that do work in Brisbane. I think it'd be a good thing. We could.
I'm bringing a couple people.
Oh, good.
I've told a few people who are planning remodels.
Yeah.
Okay. Our report of accomplishments it's going to be on council's agenda for Thursday, on their consent calendar.
It was a nice write-up, thank you.
And we already talked about habitat restoration. I already started working on hopefully trying to get our free t-shirts again, get them donated, and I've been in touch with Peter. So yeah, now that we have our person that will meet, I'll try to gather everyone together for a meeting so we can pick a day and decide all those details.
Yeah, we should pick the day as soon as possible so that it coincides with Earth Day and all that, the first one, at least.
Can you think offhand of any dates that, any other events that might not, because I remember that happened last year. There was something else going on and,
It was some Brisbane school, the Brisbane school, whatever.
Spring thing.
Spring
Spring
thing,
thing,
and I have no
okay.
idea when that is. I'm not a parent, so not really connected to that.
They're just forming their schedule right now. I have not traditionally been terribly involved with Spring Thing. I do other things for the school district. But I can poke somebody and see when they're planning on doing it.
So Earth Day this year is smack in the middle of the week. It's on Wednesday, the 22nd of April. So, what?
Yeah, let's not have it that day then.
No. So conceivably, we could do it,
Either
on
weekend.
the 18th or the 25th, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they're equally close, so I don't think it really matters. That gives us 2 weekends to work with.
yeah, so we
Yeah.
should check with the other participants, stakeholders, and check with Mountain Watch and check with Peter.
And Easter itself is on the 5th of April, so it's
away.
comfortably, we're not going to run into Easter.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah, easier this year.
yeah. Okay.
And I'd said we'd talk about Monterey Pines. We, staff invited Brian Baker of Davy Tree. We wanted to kind of pick his brain about Monterey pine trees, because members of the open space and other people in the community have said, no, I've seen this tree that's dying or dead, and we've sent out letters to a number of property owners with dead trees. So he did explain a little bit to us that when the beetle is infested a tree, overall the color is going to change, and that tree is dying and is just going in that direction. It's a one direction thing, but the ones that have the pitch canker can have localized areas that are changing color and turning yellow or red, and the pitch canker can kind of come in waves and impact an area more and then slow down, and there is a chance that those trees could be trimmed and their life extended and maybe the pitch canker, I guess, removed. So, and they also are affected by if they're getting enough water. They're drought sensitive, so when they haven't been getting enough water, they're more susceptible to both diseases and are stressed. So we definitely can use that information, and if as people want to report more trees, we can send out more letters if they're dangerous.
Yeah.
so I suppose when we report trees, we should try to add a partial description if they're, distinguish between totally dead and looks sick.
Yeah, that would be helpful, certainly, yeah.
I think, unfortunately, I think we're going to probably lose all of the trees that surround Lippman School. They're all looking really bad, and they're really dangerous, especially the ones that are upwind from the schoolyard.
They took one great big one that was near the former driveway. They took that one down.
Yeah.
Which other ones are dangerous?
They're all sick up there. The whole grove is. All the trees that were planted around, just as a personal observation, it seems like the trees that were planted around 1965 all came sort of from the same nursery stock, and they all are about the same age. It's like Crocker Industrial Park, the ones at the school were all planted about the same time, and they all are, seem to be more susceptible than some of the older ones that are around, that predate that.
Yeah, well, here's the problem with lack of diversity.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's the
Yeah.
case in this.
Somebody at San Francisco State who's an expert on forests told me that every single Monterey pine is going to die.
They probably
They
all.
all are going to die, no matter what age they are. They're all doomed.
That's such an optimist.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
she's a tree expert, so
Yeah,
that's what she
I'm
said.
sure she's right, but the ones that we're losing the fastest right now are the ones that were all planted around those mid-years nursery stock when they did a mass planting.
I don't think all the trees we're losing are Monterey pines. A couple of the ones that I saw on Valley Drive that are dead, a couple of the biggest trees don't seem like Monterey pines. They seem like some, close relative. They're conifers, but they have a different type of trunk and they're different shape. Maybe umbrella pines or something. But there's one that's right at the end of the T intersection of Park and Valley Drive. It's a huge tree, and it's dead as a doornail. And I'm pretty sure it's not a Monterey pine. It's right in front of the TV, Channel 26.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some have come out already. Do we know how many have come out? Numerically?
Now, we've done some of the ones, and the one by Littman might have been a city tree that we took out, even though it's close to Littman. So probably the planning department does know what permits were issued.
Okay.
Check.
So, when's our next meeting? And I move we adjourn.
Second the motion.
February 11th. Let me write this down. Give me a minute here.
Is there a second to that adjournment?
I
I
second.
second.
Oh, boy, all those in favor?
Who is running this meeting, Michelle?
I want to go home. I'm tired. I've been here for too many hours.
It's Michelle.
Thank you.
Did we talk about SMC 2 levels of energy plan?